Merry Meet Annie here. Welcome to Monday on Pagan's Perspective, and welcome to 2012 on Pagan Perspective. We have some changes going on, so I hope you're keeping up with us. Especially looking forward to videos that audition to be substitute hosts, and thank you for the wonderful videos we've received so far. The first half of this question came from Gelfing Faye Suzanne, or something like that. Questions about, should we do magic when we feel like it, or on a schedule like on the holidays? My answer is yes. Yes, we do it when we feel like it, any time we feel like it. There's no schedule to that. It's when the urge arises or when the need arises, when we want to accomplish something or celebrate something. Basically, any old time we are moved to do it. The other half of that was about how we schedule ourselves by working on the holidays. I'm going to assume that we can throw in the full and dark moons, perhaps, and the new moon maybe even, with the concept of when one regularly does magic. And my answer to that is yes also, but for slightly different reasons. But I'll get to that in just a little bit because it ties into some more of the question that we have here. That person goes on to share with us, after a while of doing it on a schedule, does it seem to dampen our interest in the practice instead of letting it go freely? So for me, no, absolutely not. Doing any magical working on a schedule, in the sense of it's a moon, no matter the phase, or it is one of the 8 holidays, that sense of it being a schedule and it's a time to consider whether magic is to be done, to me that is not something, it doesn't feel out of the flow of things to me. It feels very much part of the flow because whether it's the phase of the moon or it's the time of the year and the point on the turning of the wheel that we are experiencing, it allows me at any given time to tap in a unique energy to that time. So I am not thinking of doing a magical working because if we think of what's coming up this week, the full moon, or looking forward to the dark moon, or Imbolc, which is about to arrive. I'm not looking at those points like, stop, oh, it's time to do magic. I'm looking at it that those times have a particular energy which I want to work with, be with, and accomplish things with. So it doesn't feel like a structure or a force or it's the moment, therefore I must. It feels like I know this moment well. Every time I return to it, I know it well. I know what it offers. I know what can come out of this particular time. So I will work with the unique energies of this particular time. Now there's another part of that. I don't do magic just because it's a moon, any phase of the moon, or it's one of the holidays, one of the 8. I don't always feel the need to accomplish a particular thing. I sometimes just want to be with that energy of the turning of the moon or the sun. I just want to be with it and celebrate it. You know, there is a concept that we pick up in neo-pagan books that it's a holiday, or it's an Esbat or a Sabbat, either one, and therefore we are supposed to do great works of magic. Well, yeah, we want to tune in to the energy and the flow of that time of year and be with it. But we don't always have to have a need to accomplish something at that moment. Sometimes I just want to be in the moment. I think the pause to be in the moment is very important. But I don't think it puts upon us, the moment is here, therefore you must, and therefore comes a list. At least not how I experience the lunar or solar holidays. There was another person who put in a similar question, which is for the win, who talked about the feelings we get from Goddess and God. And that person mentioned they almost felt ashamed when they can't perform a ritual on a Sabbat or an Esbat. So I'm assuming that whatever the circumstances of that particular day are, they cannot settle down and do a ritual. The question was, should I feel embarrassed? How can I make up for the lost practice? Well, you know, you gotta look at why. You have to look at why. There may have been a very good reason why you couldn't settle down to appreciate that particular turning, or you were thinking you needed to put aside a lot of time and you didn't have it, that you felt like you had to do it on a particular moment, on a particular night, and life got in the way somehow. I don't think you should feel embarrassed about it. I don't think the gods are up there shaking their finger at you. I do think you owe some responsibility to it if you've chosen a path which includes the Esbats and the Sabbats. But it doesn't have to be settling down, finding a quiet hour where you can settle down and do something very specifically. It can be a moment of meditation or prayer. Taking a walk, going outside to be with the moon on a full moon's night is as deeply spiritual as anything you'll ever do in a magic circle. We may put too much on ourselves to formalize something that maybe doesn't always feel like it needs to be formal. We all have different styles on what we want to do to celebrate these turnings. I am going to say from a teacher's perspective that teaches the Wheel of the Year and the lunar phases to students, you got to do something for each of them if this is going to be your way and you want to explore it fully. But this something doesn't have to be something which takes a lot of time or practice or focus or preparation. A quiet moment to acknowledge it's Imbolc. What does that mean to me? It's the dark of the moon. Where am I? How does this feel? Opening up to the full moon or the sun at high noon. Those moments are very, very important to keep us in the flow of the cycles that we work our life and our magics within. It doesn't have to be less powerful because of the length of time we spend doing it. We do need to stop and think, though. I would have to counsel for serious students who are really, really wanting to connect to the Esbats and the Sabbats as a way to be in the flow of that particular spiritual year. You do need to make the time for it. You need to look at why you didn't have the time and what you could have done to make the time available. Part of what you experience in the flow of that is whether indeed celebrating the 8 and the lunar phases is something that needs to be part of your personal path. We decide what it is for us, but I do believe if we want to be serious seekers, we need to stop and think, if we don't make time for it, why? Not to berate ourselves, not to think we have failed, and not to think that the gods are frowning on us, but to just learn for our own knowing. Is this indeed something I feel is important enough to put time aside for? If so, why didn't I? Or what might I do at times like that to celebrate in the moment, stopping for a small pause to acknowledge the turning of the moon or the sun? Above all, I offer that we haven't failed if we are in a learning process of how much of this ritualized aspect of neo-paganism we want to include in our lives, what we need, what the gods we relate to are asking of us. We learn this as we go along. We only need to feel that we have somehow fallen short if it is something we have decided is a priority for us and an expectation of our gods, and we have not met our commitment. Each of our circumstances, our needs, and the expectations we hold for this path are different. I don't think there's such a thing as failing unless you're failing yourself, that you set certain goals for certain very specific reasons, didn't meet them, and don't stop to think why. Do I need to rethink this? Does it need to be different? Or was I lazy? Did I not create the time in my life, even if it was just for a few moments, to acknowledge the turning? Here's my thoughts on that. I don't think we set ourselves up to fail. Sometimes, though, we set ourselves up to stop and think, well, why didn't I? And what could I have done to make it different if I feel the need for it to be different? I wish you all mirth and reverence. Very part.